Hello friends, this is Sushma with you once again. I welcome you to this video. In our previous video on subject, we had discussed that a sentence has three parts: subject, verb, and an object. Although we had discussed the subject and verb in detail, but the third part, object, was left untouched. So today, in this video, you will learn what an object is. All sentences have a subject and a verb. These are the vital parts of a sentence. Some sentences may also have an object after the main verb. Here, it is to be noted that only a transitive verb can have an object. An intransitive verb can never have an object. So, what is an object? We use this word object to talk about the thing or person that the verb is done to, or who receives the verb. An object is the part of a sentence that gives meaning to the subject's action of the verb. For example, Virat hits the ball. Here, Virat is the subject, hits is the verb, and ball is the object. There are two types of object in a sentence: a direct object and an indirect object. A few verbs in English can have two different types of objects. We call these the direct object and the indirect object. For example, I gave her a pen. Here, a pen is the direct object and her is the indirect object. Now let's discuss the direct object first. What is a direct object? It is something or somebody that receives an action directly. It directly receives the action of the verb. A direct object is a noun or a noun phrase or pronoun that receives the action of a verb directly. The subject of the sentence does something directly to the direct object. Hence, the name direct object. A direct object answers the question what, who, or whom. It is generally a thing. For example, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Let's ask this question what to the verb. Thomas Edison invented what? Light bulb. So, here light bulb is the direct object. Let's see another one. John paid the bill. John paid what? The bill. So, the bill here is the direct object. Let's see a final one. I love chocolates. Ask the question what or who to the verb, and the answer will be your direct object. I love what? Chocolates. So, chocolates is our direct object. As I told you earlier, a direct object is generally a thing, but it can be a person too. Let's consider an example to understand this. The man scolded Stacy. Whom did the man scold? Stacy. So, Stacy is the direct object here. It's a person and not a thing. Let's have one more. I teach you. I teach whom? You. So, you here is not a thing, but a person. Okay, friends, time to move on to the indirect object now. An indirect object is the person that receives the direct object. It is somebody whom the action is done for or to. Indirect objects are included in sentences when the subject in the sentence does something to something or someone else. Not all action verbs can take an indirect object. Again, like the name suggests, indirect objects involve something being done to something else indirectly. How are you going to identify an indirect object? An indirect object answers the question to whom, for whom, and for what. Now, there's an important thing to note. You must have a direct object in your sentence in order to have an indirect object. Alright, in order to have an indirect object in your sentence, you must have the direct object. If your sentence does not have a direct object in it, it can never have an indirect object. Let's have a look at the example to understand this. Mrs. Sharma offered girls a cake. Now, before we search for an indirect object, let's find out the direct object first. Mrs. Sharma offered what? A cake. So, a cake here is the direct object. Let's find out the indirect object now. Now tell me, who is receiving the cake? The girls. So, The girls here is an indirect object. There's another example. They gave Suraj a new car. Before finding out the indirect object, let's find out the direct object first. They gave what? A new car. So, a new car is the direct object. Now, who's receiving a new car here? Suraj, right? Suraj is the indirect object here. So, Suraj is receiving this direct object, which is a new car. Let's practice one more. She sent her friend an email. What's the direct object here? Ask the question what? She sent what? An email, right? So, email is the direct object here. To whom has she sent the email? To her friend. So, her friend is the indirect object here. Isn't it easy to figure out? An indirect object is somebody that receives the direct object. It is somebody that the action is done for. So friends, that was the end of this video. Hope you have learned the difference between a direct and an indirect object. Thank you. I'll be back with some more such videos. Till then, keep learning, keep enjoying. Bye for now.